The bar was loud, crowded, and buzzing with the careless laughter of people too rich to be afraid. But the laughter stopped the moment three men cornered her. She wasn't just any woman. She was a CEO with enough power to change the futures of entire industries. Yet here, pressed against polished wood and sneering faces, she looked frighteningly human. The crowd froze, eyes darting, no one stepping forward. And then, from behind the counter, a bartender wiped his hands on a stained apron, picked up a muddler, and whispered four words that cracked the silence like glass. "Leave her alone." No one expected him to move. No one expected him to fight. And when he did, when he dismantled the three trained killers with nothing but precision, fury, and a past he never wanted revealed, the only sound louder than fists against bone was the gasp that left her lips. Because when the dust settled, she didn't say, "Thank you." She said something else. Something that carried the weight of 1,000 unshed tears. Her voice trembled, her eyes wide, and in the stillness of that ruined night, she whispered a name she had buried years ago. Evelyn Hart didn't do small places. Not anymore. Boardrooms, penthouses, international stages. Yes. But bars like this, tucked into an old London side street with sticky floors and dim lighting, that was another life. Still, she was here, hiding from the world, her security detail strategically delayed, because she craved a night of anonymity. For the first time in years, she wanted to feel ordinary. But power never walked alone. Even in her simplest dress, her presence carried weight. Men noticed. Some respected the distance her eyes demanded. Others, the wrong kind, thought power was just another challenge. That's how the three of them closed in. Smooth at first, then sharper, hands grazing where they weren't welcome, words cutting where they knew they could. Evelyn stiffened, her mind racing with both fear and fury. Across the room, no one moved. Silence in the face of danger was an old song she'd heard before. She braced herself to fight back, to claw her way out if she had to. But before she could, a voice rose from behind the bar, steady and unshakable. "Leave her alone." The man stepped out, tall, rough around the edges, apron stained from endless nights of thankless work. He looked like no one and everyone, forgettable, ordinary, until his eyes locked on theirs, sharp enough to slice steel. Then he moved. The muddler wasn't a weapon. Not really. It was for crushing mint leaves, muddling sugar, stirring drinks. But in his hands, it became something else. A baton. A warning. A promise. The first man lunged, confident in numbers. The bartender ducked, swung, and bone cracked under wood. The second tried from the side, but a swift elbow collapsed him. The third hesitated, but hesitation was death in a fight like this. Within seconds, all three were sprawled, groaning, clutching ribs and jaws that wouldn't heal clean. Evelyn's heart pounded, but not just from the fight. She had seen violence before, in boardrooms, in politics, in shadowed corners where deals were made. But this was different. There was something terrifyingly precise about the way he moved, something that screamed training, scars, and battles fought in silence. When it was over, the room exhaled, the tension breaking into whispers and hurried exits. Evelyn stood frozen, eyes locked on him. He turned toward her, breathing steady, muddler hanging loosely at his side. She expected him to bow his head, step back into obscurity. But then he looked at her, really looked at her, and her world tilted. Her lips parted, and the words escaped before she could stop them. They weren't thank you. They weren't gratitude at all. They were the raw, unfiltered echo of a memory she thought she'd buried forever. Her voice cracked, fragile against the silence. "James." For a moment, he didn't answer. The name hung in the air like smoke, heavy and undeniable. His jaw tightened, eyes flickering with something dangerously close to recognition. But then he turned, tossed the muddler back behind the bar, and reached for a towel like it had all been nothing. Evelyn staggered closer, her chest rising and falling in uneven waves. She knew that face. Older now, rougher, carved with time and loss. But it was him. It had to be. The boy who once held her hand on a broken bridge in Manchester. The man who had vanished without goodbye. The ghost she thought she'd never see again. "Why are you here?" she demanded, her voice trembling between anger and awe. He didn't look at her. "I work here." But Evelyn Hart wasn't a woman who accepted simple answers. Not from employees, not from rivals, and certainly not from the man who had once stolen her heart. James Carter scrubbed at the counter like the wood itself needed absolution. His muscles tensed with every word she didn't say. He could feel her eyes on him, heavy, relentless. She was the same Evelyn, sharp, beautiful, untouchable, but cloaked now in wealth and power that seemed galaxies away from the girl he once knew. "You disappeared," she whispered. It wasn't accusation. It was wound. James clenched his jaw, forcing himself not to meet her gaze. "People disappear every day." "Not you," she shot back, voice breaking. "Not you, James." The bar had emptied, the fallen men dragged out by someone who didn't ask questions. Only the two of them remained in the wreckage of silence. And though James wanted nothing more than to slip back into invisibility, fate had already dragged him back into the light. Evelyn followed him outside, the night air biting against her bare arms. London's streets were alive with honking taxis and distant laughter, but around them it felt like the world had narrowed to just two people. He walked fast, head down, shoulders tense. She quickened her pace, refusing to let him vanish again. "You owe me an explanation." "I don't owe you anything," James muttered, not breaking stride. "You saved me in there," she said, voice softening. "But that's not what shocked me. It's you. After all these years, after everything. Why now? Why here?" He stopped, finally turning to her. His eyes, storm-dark and unreadable, bore into hers. "Because some ghosts don't stay buried. And some debts never get paid." James lived above the bar, a single cramped room with a mattress on the floor and a desk littered with old papers. Evelyn followed him inside, ignoring his protests, her heels clicking against the worn wood. She looked around, stunned. For a man who fought like a soldier and carried himself like a shadow, his world was painfully small. No luxury, no distraction, just survival. "How did it come to this?" she whispered. "You were brilliant, James. You had a future. You had me." His hands tightened around the chair's backrest. "I had choices. I made the wrong ones." Evelyn stepped closer, her voice breaking. "And you never thought I deserved to know? You never thought I could handle the truth?" He closed his eyes, fighting demons she couldn't see. "The truth," he said finally, "would have destroyed you." But Evelyn Hart wasn't a woman easily destroyed. She had built empires from ashes, clawed her way past men who told her she'd never succeed, risen higher than anyone believed she could. Yet standing there, in front of James Carter, she felt like that 16-year-old girl again, scared, desperate, and still hopelessly in love. "You don't get to decide what destroys me," she said fiercely. "Not then, not now." James turned away, staring out the small window where neon lights flickered in the night. "You don't understand, Evelyn. The people I ran from, the things I did, you're safer not knowing." Her breath caught. "Those men tonight, they weren't random, were they?" James didn't answer, but the silence was all she needed. The truth unraveled slowly, in pieces James never meant to give. He hadn't just vanished years ago. He had been pulled into a world darker than Evelyn could imagine. Military contracts, black ops assignments, the kind of missions governments denied but paid fortunes for. He had been good. Too good. And when he walked away, he didn't leave clean. "They want you," Evelyn whispered, realization dawning. Not me. Tonight, they were after you. James shook his head, weary. No, they were after both of us. Because of me, you're a target now. Evelyn's hand trembled, but she didn't back away. Instead, she stepped closer. Then you'd better stop pushing me out. Because whether you like it or not, James, we're in this together. Their fragile reunion was interrupted by the sharp buzz of Evelyn's phone. A message flashed across the screen. We know who protects you. Step down, or you both burn. Her blood ran cold. James read it over her shoulder, his face hardening. It's starting. What's starting? Evelyn asked, panic threading her words. The game, he said simply. And trust me, you don't want to know the rules. But Evelyn wasn't the kind to step down. Not from boardrooms, not from men who thought they could break her, and not from the man she loved who thought he could protect her by leaving her behind. The next morning, Evelyn's office felt different. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed London's skyline, but the city didn't look like power anymore. It looked like a battlefield. She sat at her desk, staring at the message again and again, while her assistant nervously shuffled papers. James stood near the door, arms crossed, an imposing presence in a place he clearly didn't belong. His shirt sleeves were rolled, bruises from last night already fading, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. Evelyn dismissed the assistant with a wave. When the room was empty, she turned to him. You can't just stand there like a shadow, she said. If they're coming for me, I need more than silence. I need the truth. James exhaled slowly. Truth doesn't keep you alive, Evelyn. Plans do. And the first step is you canceling your appearances, staying away from cameras, and putting your empire on pause. Her laugh was bitter. Pause? James, my company doesn't pause. Thousands of employees, billions on the line. You think I can just disappear? He met her gaze without blinking. If you don't, they'll make you disappear for good. That night, she refused his plan. Evelyn walked into the gala she'd been scheduled to attend, diamonds at her throat, her posture unyielding. The world would not see her flinch. James followed from the shadows, blending in among servers and security. He hated it, every second. But he knew her well enough to understand she wouldn't bow to fear. The event sparkled with false laughter and champagne. Evelyn worked the room like the queen she was, shaking hands, exchanging calculated smiles. But her eyes flicked constantly to the edges, searching for James. It was maddening that after all these years, his presence steadied her more than her board, her investors, her guards. Halfway through the evening it happened. A tray dropped, glass shattered. In the chaos, a figure moved too close. James reacted instantly, intercepting the man's wrist before the blade could clear its sleeve. The crowd gasped as he twisted, disarmed, and floored the attacker in one brutal motion. For a moment, silence reigned, cameras flashed, and Evelyn realized something chilling. The world had just seen her invisible protector. James Carter was no longer in the shadows. The press tore them apart the next day. Headlines screamed about the mystery man who defended Evelyn Hart, speculation swirling like wildfire. Some called him her lover, others her bodyguard. Some whispered darker things, that he was the reason she was under attack at all. In her penthouse, Evelyn paced, fury and fear battling inside her. James sat calmly at the kitchen counter, sipping black coffee, as if the entire world wasn't dissecting his existence. You don't care, do you? She snapped. That everyone thinks you're some scandal wrapped around my neck? He set the mug down slowly. Let them think what they want. They're easier to handle than the men coming for you. She stopped pacing, staring at him. This isn't just about me, James. If you stay close, they'll keep coming. They'll burn down everything I built. James's voice softened. If I walk away, they'll kill you. And I can't. He cut himself off, jaw tightening. I can't let that happen. Evelyn leaned against the counter, her breath shallow. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why me? After all these years, after disappearing without a word, why are you here now, risking everything?" James's eyes lifted to hers, heavy with ghosts. "Because I never stopped loving you." The room fell silent, the city's hum muffled by the weight of his confession. Evelyn's throat tightened. She had dreamed of hearing those words again once, but now, with death circling them, they felt like both salvation and curse. "You don't get to say that," she whispered. "Not after leaving me with nothing but questions." "I left to protect you," James said, voice raw. "The things I was pulled into, contracts, missions, if they knew about us, you'd be dead before you turned 25. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. "And now?" "Now," he said, stepping closer. "They know anyway. And I won't run this time." They spent the next days in hiding, moving from safe house to safe house, James always a step ahead of whoever hunted them. Evelyn hated the secrecy, the cold apartments, the restless nights where danger felt closer than sleep. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. They talked. Not about business or enemies, but about the years between. About her climb from nothing to CEO. About his missions in places he couldn't name. About regrets that piled like stones on their chests. And slowly, brick by brick, the wall between them began to crumble. One night, as rain pounded against the windows of a flat in Edinburgh, she asked, "Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if you'd stayed? If we'd faced it together?" James stared into the darkness. "Every day. But wondering doesn't change the choices I made. And it doesn't erase the blood on my hands." Evelyn touched his arm gently. "Maybe it's not about erasing it. Maybe it's about carrying it together." Their fragile peace shattered with a single phone call. Evelyn's assistant, voice shaking, told her that the board was preparing to remove her. Too many scandals, too much risk. Investors were pulling back. "They're doing exactly what our enemies want," Evelyn whispered after ending the call. "I'm losing everything, James." He paced the room, fists clenched. "It's not the board you should be worried about. This pressure, the attacks, it's coordinated. Someone wants you broken, both in the boardroom and on the street." Her eyes widened. "But who?" James hesitated, then spoke. "Someone from my past, someone who knows exactly how to hurt me." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "This isn't about me at all, is it? It's about you." The answer came in fire. Their safe house was ambushed at dawn, Molotov cocktails shattering windows, flames clawing through curtains. James dragged Evelyn out through the smoke, coughing, every muscle straining to shield her. They barely escaped into the alley before the building collapsed. On the street, James fought like a man possessed, taking down attackers with brutal precision. Evelyn, terrified but unbroken, swung a piece of debris at one who lunged too close. Together they clawed their way into a stolen car, speeding into the morning fog. When they finally stopped miles away, Evelyn's hands were trembling, soot streaked across her face. She turned to James, eyes blazing. "No more lies! Tell me who's doing this!" James's silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Then, finally, he whispered a name, one she'd never heard before, but one that made him look as if he'd seen the devil. That name haunted James. Marcus Kane. Once his brother in arms, now his deadliest enemy. They had fought together in wars no one admitted happened, but Marcus had crossed a line, taking contracts from the highest bidder, selling skills meant for defense into tools of terror. James had tried to stop him. The fallout had destroyed them both. "And now he wants revenge," James explained grimly. "He doesn't just want me dead. He wants everything I care about erased. That means you." Evelyn clenched her fists. "So this man thinks he can break me to get to you. He thinks I'll step down, bow out, disappear." Her voice hardened, steel beneath velvet. "He doesn't know who he's dealing with." James almost smiled. Almost. That's what I always loved about you. You never bowed. They didn't wait to be hunted. James and Evelyn went on the offensive. Using her resources and his training, they tracked Marcus's network across Europe. Whispers in Paris, shell companies in Berlin, arms deals in Rome. Each step was a risk, each move a gamble. But Evelyn surprised even James with her resolve. In Milan, she sat across from a corrupt banker, her poise flawless, while James listened in from the shadows. She dangled just enough of her empire to lure information, her voice calm even as danger pressed close. Afterward, James confronted her. "You could have been killed in there." Evelyn met his eyes. "And you think I built a global company by hiding behind men? You protect me in fights, James, but when it comes to strategy, I protect us both." He had no answer, just pride he couldn't quite say out loud. The closer they got to Marcus, the more the past bled into the present. Evelyn began to see the man James had been, the leader, the protector, the one who carried others' burdens even when it broke him. She realized he hadn't just vanished years ago, he had sacrificed himself again and again for people who would never know his name. One night, as they prepared to leave Prague, Evelyn turned to him, voice quiet. "You carry too much alone." James shrugged, checking his weapon. "That's the job." "No," she said firmly. "That's your wound, but it doesn't have to be mine. Let me carry some of it, James. Please." For the first time, he let her touch the scar across his shoulder, the one he'd never explained. And for the first time, he didn't pull away. The final confrontation came in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Marseille. Marcus Kane stood waiting, flanked by mercenaries, his smile sharp and cruel. "James Carter," he drawled, "always cleaning up messes that aren't yours." Evelyn stood at James's side, chin high despite the danger. Marcus's gaze slid to her, amused. "So this is the famous Evelyn Hart. I can see why you'd risk it all for her. Shame it won't matter." The fight erupted like thunder. Bullets, fists, steel, chaos in every corner. James moved like a storm, cutting through enemies with precision, but Marcus was his equal. They clashed with the fury of old brothers turned enemies, every blow carrying history. Evelyn, unarmed but unbroken, grabbed a fallen weapon and fired, covering James when Marcus's men closed in. Together they turned the tide. But it came down to James and Marcus, face to face, past and present colliding in violence that could only end one way. The fight was brutal, dragging them across concrete and broken beams. Marcus taunted, every strike laced with venom. "You could have had power, Carter. You could have ruled with me. Instead, you chose weakness, love, loyalty, ghosts." James's breath was ragged, but his resolve was iron. "Love isn't weakness. It's the only thing that ever kept me alive." With a final surge, he disarmed Marcus, pinning him to the ground. The knife hovered, inches from ending it. Evelyn's voice cut through the haze. "James, don't! If you kill him, you become him." James's hand trembled. For a long, breathless moment, he hovered on the edge of vengeance. Then, slowly, he dropped the blade. Marcus roared in fury as James turned away, but the authorities Evelyn had summoned swept in, surrounding the scene. It was over. Finally, it was over. Weeks later, the world had moved on. Marcus was in custody, his empire dismantled. Evelyn's board had tried to oust her, but her unshakable defiance and the public's awe of her survival left her stronger than ever. Headlines no longer called her a victim. They called her unstoppable. James, however, remained a question mark. He still lived quietly, still carried scars no one could see. But he no longer tried to vanish. He sat beside Evelyn now, not in shadows, but in light. She refused to let him leave. On a quiet evening in her London penthouse, they stood by the window, the city sprawling beneath them. Evelyn slipped her hand into his, steady, certain. "You once said the truth would have destroyed me. But James, you're wrong." The only thing that could have destroyed me was losing you." He turned, eyes softening for the first time in years. "Then maybe it's time I stop running." And for the first time since fate tore them apart, they kissed, not as ghosts of who they were, but as partners in who they'd become. Because not all heroes stand in the spotlight. Some just keep going when no one's watching. And sometimes, love is the bravest fight of all.